Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first session in a series of talks that are part of what we've called the ICUB Workshops in Understanding. And we've called them ICUB because this is the research institute at the University of Bucharest, Romania. And the acronym in Romanian is ICUB, Institutul de Cercetări al Universității din București. And we've called them Workshops in Understanding because we're delighted to be supported and sponsored by the local public funding agency for research. And this is a WEFISCDI. And the postdoctoral project via which this series of talks is supported is has the following code: PN3 Roman -3 Roman P1-1.1-PD 2019-0535. I'm delighted to be the postdoc having that as a grant, and I'm just as delighted to be able to initiate this series of workshops. And our first speaker today is Dr. Andreea Popescu, and she's both at CNSPA and at ICUB. And her talk is titled Overdetermination and Successfully Carrying Out an Intention. And I'm very grateful that you agreed to talk to us tonight, and looking forward to her presentation and the Q&A to follow. Thanks. Andreea, take it away.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. I'm trying, I have a technical problem because I'm trying to share the screen, and I think you have to allow me to do this because I cannot share my presentation with you.
Oh, there's a small rectangle in the bottom right corner of your screen.
Present now.
That's right.
Yes, and I'm pressing the entire screen, for example, and the share button. The share button is unavailable for me.
Oh, I see. Why would that be? That doesn't make any sense.
It's just cancel. It works, but the other one doesn't.
Okay. Well, let's see. Let's get to the bottom of this. This is both a philosophical and a practical issue. So let's see if we can find a way around that. How about you're trying once more?
Okay. Nope.
All right. Could you possibly send me your presentation, and then when you see fit to move from one slide to the other, I could very easily embody a mechanical agent and do that for you?
Okay, but I can send it.
It should really be accessible to everyone. I should point that out.
Andrei, isn't there any setting which you can change? I mean, don't you have like this admin stuff?
So this isn't Zoom. There's an automatic permission for everyone to yeah.
I'm not. Right. No, it still doesn't work.
Okay, that's all right. That's okay. We don't need to. It's you know, these things happen. It's fine. And so I wonder if that might be the best route here. If you might just send me the.
I sent it on Facebook. I sent it to you on Facebook.
Okay. Okay. Let me just double check that. And you know, they do say that even if the start might be doubtful, it's all the more it's all for the better when it comes to the further development of the research project that we're considering here. All right, and this should open in a second. And we're very grateful to everyone for their patience, and especially to Andreea, who's done a terrific job at bearing through with the well, happenings of online presentations. So let's see if I can share this, and indeed I can. But I need, okay. So, okay, can you see Andrea's presentation right now?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay, that is perfect. That is perfect. And let me just mute myself. And Andreea, please please rest assured that I'll switch the slides as soon as you give word. Okay?
Okay. So I have to tell you every time you have to switch the slide, or?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
That's the plan. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay, so overdetermination and carrying out an intention successfully. This is an extended presentation. I also gave this talk at the second workshop in analytic philosophy organized by Aleph. So I tried to make some improvements. And the story goes like this. We have two agents, 007, 006. Andrei, please switch the slide. And we have a victim, Aristotle Christatos. So this would be the third slide. And the story is the following. Please switch the slide again. So the story is the following. 007 poisons Aristotle Christatos, and 006 poisons Aristotle Christatos as well. And we have an assumption here that each agent administrates a concentration sufficient to kill Aristotle Christatos, and that the two agents do not know anything about each other's deed. Well, the thing is that 007 reports to M, I poisoned Aristotle Christatos, and 006 reports to M as well, I poisoned Aristotle Christatos. So I have to say again that they don't know about each other's deed. And if Andrei, would you be kind to switch again the slide? I have 3 questions I would like to explore in this presentation. So the first question is the following. When 007 or 006 says, I killed Aristotle Christatos, is he saying something true or false? Or what if 007 would tell us, I intended to kill Aristotle Christatos? Would we answer something of the following, you failed when pursuing your intention? Or, alternatively, would we be right to describe the two as successfully carrying out their intention? Well, this is the story, and we have an answer to this story, and I would like to talk about Kirk Ludwig's puzzling answer. So he says the following. Here there is a temptation to say that they were both successful, for one wants to say that nothing went wrong with their plans. Andrei, please switch the slide, please. Yet, though each intended that he poisoned the victim, in point of fact, they poisoned the victim together, if not intentionally. Neither gets to claim that he did it, that is the sole agent of the event in the relevant way. It is not their individual plans that go awry. It is rather that whereas each intends to be the agent of the death by way of victims consuming poison soup, neither is. Okay, so this seems a bit puzzling, and in the following, in the time following, I will present the following 3 topics. First, I will discuss Ludwig's theoretical setting, which leads to his answer. Second, I will discuss why he provides these answers, and also present a reaction to Ludwig's account. And in the third part, I will explore some alternative answers. So, I think you should switch the slide again, Andrei, please. Yeah, so these are the 3 main parts of my presentation. Okay, so I would like to talk about the general setting of the whole problem. And Andrei, if you please. So we have Kurt Ludwig's project From Individual to Plural Agency, Collective Action. This is a 2-volume book, actually, and he is providing an extensive analysis of what collective action is and what group agency is. Okay, so from an ontological point of view, what he tries to argue is that collective actions do not imply there is an agent over and above the individual agents participating in the collective actions. So if we have a collective action, it doesn't mean that we have a group agent. Well, he also wants to argue that collective actions are not actions per se. They are actions in the secondary and derivative way. The only actions which are actions per se, in the primary and non-derivative way, are individual actions. So this is the ontological component of his project. Well, he tries to do this by logical analysis, and this analysis it's meant to show that if we have a plural action sentence, like we sang the national anthem together, we can have 2 readings, a distributive reading and a collective reading. What he tries to argue is that the collective reading is not reducible to the distributive reading. If it would be reducible, then collective actions would be collective actions in the primary and non-derivative sense. And why? Because a plural action sentence read in the distributive way means nothing more than a collection of individual actions. So when I say we sang the national anthem and I have a distributive reading, is that I sang the national anthem in my, I don't know, alone without any other participation. Ovidiu did this the same while watching a football game. Nora did this the same while, I don't know, cooking. And now I would like to go some more, I would like to talk some more about his whole project. And Andrei, if you would like to go to the second slide. Okay, so his main idea is to provide this logical analysis to unravel the structure of action sentences. So if we have a singular action sentence, for instance, I prepare dinner, actually what we are trying to say is the following from Ludwig's point of view. There is the event of preparing dinner, the primitive action, and a time previous to the time of uttering, such that I am the agent of the primitive actions at that previous time. The primitive actions directly brought about the event of preparing dinner, and this is very important, I am the only agent of any primitive action which directly brought about the preparation of dinner. And this is called the sole agency requirement. So, the short version would be that I performed a primitive action. That primitive action brought about an event, and I am the only agent whose primitive actions cause that event. Okay, so the next slide deals with the plural action sentences. So a plural action sentence is the following: we prepared dinner. And the logical structure of this sentence from Ludwig's point of view is the following. Each of us is such that there is an event of preparing the dinner, the primitive action or actions, and the time previous to the time of uttering, such that each of us is the agent of the primitive actions at a certain previous time. The primitive actions directly brought about the preparation of dinner, and the last one, which is a counterpart of the sole agency requirement, each of us is the only agent of the primitive action which brought about the preparation of dinner. So the idea is, as I said before, that if we have this distributive reading, we actually have a collection of individual actions. So there isn't an action to which multiple agents contribute. For every agent, there is an action associated. And this action is determined, of course, by the primitive actions of the agent. And we should go further to the collective reading. So the next slide. Okay, so this is the short version of the plural action sentences, the distributive reading of a plural action sentence. Each of us is such that there is an event of preparing the dinner for each of us. Basically, each of us prepared his own dinner. That's what we try to say when we have a distributive reading. The next slide deals with the collective reading. Okay, thanks. So the extended logical structure of this sentence, we prepared dinner, is the following. There is the event of preparing the dinner such that for each of us there is or are the primitive actions and the time previous to the time of uttering, such that each of us is the agent of his or her primitive actions at that previous time. And this is essential for the collective reading. The sum of our primitive actions brought about the event of preparing the dinner directly. And the last clause, there is no one else whose primitive actions contribute to the sum which directly brought about the preparation of dinner. Okay, so the basic idea here is that we have multiple agents. Each has her own primitive actions, and the sum of their primitive actions bring or cause the event of preparing dinner. The next slide is the short reading for this. So there is the event of preparing the dinner to which each of us contributed. Okay. Basically, this is the whole idea in Ludwig's book, from individual to plural agency. And maybe Andrei, if you'd like to go to the furthest to the second. Okay, thank you. Why the collective reading is not reducible to the distributive reading? So this is the aim of his project. Well, the sole agency requirement excludes co-agency in the distributive reading. Recall that the sole agency requirement says that I am the only agent whose primitive actions cause a certain event. The distributing reading actually delivers a collection of singular action sentences, so each agent is associated with her own action. Well, the collective reading excludes the sole agency requirement, so it cannot be reduced to the collective reading. Thus, while the distributive reading needs the sole agency requirement, the collective reading excludes the sole agency requirement, and thus the reduction cannot be done. And thus, collective reading, the collective reading and collective actions are not actions per se. If we go further, we get to the main point. Individual actions are actions per se in the primary sense. Collective actions are not actions per se in the primary sense, but just in the derivative sense. I'd like to present some key terms, key concepts. So, Andrei, if you please. So these key concepts are important to understand why Ludwig answers in that way to our puzzle with secret agents. We already talked about the sole agency requirement, that sole agency requirement excludes co-agency. There must be just one agent. A primitive action is an action which is not performed by some other, by means of another actions. An example of primitive actions are our bodily movements. Okay, to bring about an event directly, this is actually means to cause an event. And now we have some important concepts for the answer. So we have this idea of prior intention. For example, I want to go to the store to buy some things. So I form this primary intention of going to the store. Well, in order to go to the store, I have to develop a plan. I have to take some money, I have to take a bag, etc. Well, this plan consists of some subsequent actions, and those actions are accompanied by those intention in action. Okay, so we get to executing an intention successfully. Well, to execute an intention successfully, it means to satisfy the content of an intention. I have the prior intention to go to the store, and this intention is satisfied by executing this intention through the plan I elaborate. Well, the last key concept is that of wayward causal chain, and this is what it actually means is, for example, if I want to turn on the light and I move my hand towards the switch. Well, if the floor is wet and I slip and I hit the switch, well, my prior intention is satisfied, but because I get the result of turning on the light, but through a wayward causal chain, because something else interferes in my plan of turning on the light. Okay, Andrei, please, if you. Okay, so here is a more extended explanation of what it means to execute an intention successfully. So the content of an intention is satisfied if the intention is executed, and the result is the one intended. But we have some conditions we need to satisfy. We need to obtain the intended result. For example, if I want to switch to turn on the light, if I turn on the light, is not sufficient to successfully execute my intention because of the wayward causal chains. The result should be obtained because of the plan the agent has when executing her intention. That means there isn't any wayward causal chain that interferes. There is no other co-agent that interferes with my plan when I'm executing my intention. Okay, so the third is that the agent must have control over her primary actions when executing her intention. This also excludes wayward causal chains, like the example of falling because of the wet floor. And the last condition is to execute my intention by means of a primitive action procedure. So my actions should be, for example, if I want to shoot somebody and I do not press the button because because I have a spasm or something like this. This is not executed by a primitive action procedure because I do not have control on my actions. Okay, so why? Maybe we can go further, Andrei, and you can please. We can go back to the previous questions I tried to explore. No, it's slide 18. 17, sorry. No, 18, sorry. Okay. Okay, so recall that the questions were the following. Is 007 saying something true when he says, I killed Aristotle Christatos? If he would tell us, I intended to kill Aristotle Christatos, would we answer something of the following? You failed when pursuing your intention. Or would be right to describe both 007 and 006 as successfully carrying out their intention? Well, the answer Ludwig provides is that 007's I intention excludes co-agents and is the same case for 006. So in this sense, his answer is that 007 utters something false when he says that he killed Aristotle Christatos, that we should say that he failed when pursuing his intention, and that we wouldn't be right to say that both agents successfully carried out their intention. Okay, so the idea is whether 006 is really a co-agent. Well, we can go a little bit further. Okay, so the basic idea is that the singular action sentences embed the sole agency requirement that there is only one agent. So the participation of 006 is problematic. And when 007 expresses his intention, I intend to kill Aristotle Christatos, he excludes co-agency. So that this is why his intention is not successfully executed. Well, there is also there was a criticism provided by Ole Bloomberg. But maybe we can go to the following slide. Okay, so sorry. Well, here is Ludwig's basic idea that the agent is the only one who brings about that Q in accordance with the plan for doing so, accepting anyone the agent intends to get to from such a plan as part of his plan to bring about that Q. So 007 would have been successful if his plan would have included 006 participation. Since it doesn't, he doesn't execute his intention successfully. Okay, so this is Ludwig's answer to the whole problem. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Okay, so Bloomberg criticizes this idea Ludwig has by arguing that the sole agency requirement is not necessary because it's not semantically implied, it's just pragmatically implied. So if we go back to those questions, Bloomberg would say the following, that 007 utters something true when saying that he killed Aristotle Christatos and that his intention was executed successfully. But let's explore some more ideas or possible answers to Ludwig. And maybe we can go to the next slide. Because Ludwig also has a reaction to what Bloomberg says. And he compares the whole situation with that of a wayward causal chain. And my question is this case of the secret agents a wayward causal chain? Well, it seems it is not, because the causal chains of 007 and 006 are disjoint. They do not interact with each other. It would be a wayward causal chain if the cause of Aristotle Christatos would have been the union of both 006 and 007 concentration of poison. So if the concentration of poison that 007 provides wouldn't have been sufficient. However, another question would be the following. Is it structurally similar to a wayward causal chain? Because the basic idea is that in a wayward causal chain, we have the result, but it doesn't mean that the intention was carried out successfully. So I would like to compare with the following situation. Please, it's a slightly altered example from Harry Potter universe. So please do not, if you're a Harry Potter fan, do not be mad. Okay, so Draco Malfoy intends to kill Dumbledore given Voldemort's order. However, his mother knows he's not able to do it, since Dumbledore is a far more powerful wizard. He asks Snape to help Draco, but without Draco being aware of his help. When Draco performed the spell to kill Dumbledore, Snape performs another spell to enhance Draco's performance, and Dumbledore is killed. Okay, so this is a classical example of a wayward causal chain with the participation of a co-agent. But let's go to the following situation and see if there. Okay, so actually we just insist on Draco Malfoy. So consider Draco gets to find out that Dumbledore died not only as a result of his spell, but as a result of Snape's interference as well. If Draco bragged about this and at the news that he didn't kill Dumbledore by himself, he would consider himself an imposter, that he didn't deserve the title of the one who killed Dumbledore. Well, if we go to the next slide, please, Andrei. My question is whether 007 is as much of a loser as Draco Malfoy. So consider the following situation. Consider that Anne is the true nemesis of 007, that she is actually wicked and she tries to psychologically destroy 007 by making him feel an imposter. What Anne tries to do is to be sure that 007 never carries out his intention. For this matter, she gives 006 the following mission, that is to replicate every assassination 007 is assigned. Thus, the killing of Aristotle Christatos is just one in the gallery of the results 007 thought was the author of. In this case, if Ludwig was right, then it would seem that Anne succeeded and that 007 is an imposter. However, is 007 an imposter in the same degree Draco is? What conclusion I tried to get to is the following. It seems that the sole agency requirement seems to be too strong, and the question is whether we can loosen it. Okay. Please. Okay, Andrei. What is actually happening here in the secret agents example is that we have a causal overdetermination. So we have this, and this is maybe a key aspect in order to solve the problem. We have the following definition for causal overdetermination. Causes C1 and C2 causally overdetermine and affect E. If C1 and C2 are distinct, they actually occur, and they are individually sufficient to cause E in the way that it occurs. So 007's actions are sufficient to kill Aristotle Christatos, and 006 actions are in the same way sufficient to kill Aristotle Christatos. And maybe, given this this aspect of overdetermination and the fact that they're both sufficient, maybe we can rephrase the sole agency requirement, and I propose the following rephrasal, a model sole agency requirement. Actually, here it's more like a counterfactual, but I will think about it. If X were the sole agent performing the same primitive action at any previous time, which brings about the result would have been the same. So what I'm basically saying is that if 006 wouldn't existed, 007's actions would have been sufficient, and the plan of action would have been sufficient to kill Aristotle Christatos. Okay, but there is a problem, because if we consider this alternative circumstances, if we take that formulation of the model sole agency requirement, the result could have been brought by the same agent and by the same primitive actions, but through a wayward causal chain. So the model sole agency requirement does not exclude wayward causal chains. That is, then, that means that we must have an amendment to the model sole agency requirement. Andrei, please. If you can go to the following slide. So a requirement would be the following: to have the same causal chain in the model's sole agency requirement in order to eliminate cases of wayward causal chains. Okay, so now we get to the conclusions. But if we go to the following slide, Andrei, please, can you see? So my concluding remarks are the following. So I tried to discuss Ludwig's view on individual and collective action sentences. Also, his answer to the double poisoning problem, and suggest some alternative ways to view the problem. Okay, so thank you for hearing my presentation. I hope it was okay.
Thanks so much, Andrea, and we genuinely appreciate it. And I should say I'm very happy to act as the machine pulling up the slides at any point. You yourself or any of our conversants would like to home in on some of the topics that you've covered. So thanks once again.
Thank you for helping me with the slides.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I think this has been quite a unique experience for everyone, and I know that some of these platforms have the applause button, but I don't know if Google Meet has it. So thanks once again, and we genuinely appreciate it. And this gives us plenty of room for conversation. And so if there's any of you who'd like to ask a first question, by all means, please go ahead. We have 2 hands already. This is quite spectacular. I'm going to keep the presentation open just in case any of you would like to refer back to any of the slides. I'm going to first give way to Andreea Popescu.
Thank you. My question is, in order to reflect about the initial puzzle in a relevant way, the one with 006 and 007, I think we need some kind of God's eye view. I mean, I think the most basic intuition is that the first of the 2 agents who managed to poison Aristotle carried out his intention successfully, and the other one, we could say, is an imposter who failed, or maybe not necessarily if we agree on the model definition that you gave at the end. But my question would be, does this matter as long as they don't find out about each other's plan to do exactly the same thing? I mean, the way the question was presented was very metaphysical, from high above. But if we take into account the epistemic factors, what each of the agents knows about what happened and about the other's interference, does the problem still stand, or does it still have a relevance?
Okay, so maybe let's say that 007 and 006 never find out about their poisoning of Aristotle Christatos. So your question is whether the problem still stands. So I think it does. So I think that the problem here is a metaphysical problem. It's not an epistemological one. So even though they do not know about it, even though nobody knows and will never know about this this problem, the fact that they both poisoned Aristotle Christatos, the action of, or the event of killing Aristotle Christatos is still determined by 2 agents. And the question is whether they are successful or not. So maybe you can ask whether your intention, whether the agent's intentions should not be understood only from a metaphysical, ontological point of view, but from an epistemological point of view. So if they never find out, then their intention is successfully executed. But it's just not. It's just I don't know. Maybe we can think of the following example. If I don't have a driver license, and I go to take that driver license, and I have to take the exam, and I have this intention of becoming a licensed driver. Well, I'm not very good at it, so I should fail the exam. But my father bribes the examiners, and I take the exam. And in this case, is my intention successfully executed? So I think this is how Ludwig would see the problem from, and how he would, I don't know, argue that we should analyze it from an ontological or metaphysical point of view and not an epistemological point of view. Thank you.
Thank you too.
All right, thanks so much. I do have a quick follow-up before I move on, though I see that Ovidiu, Bogdan have their own questions, but I just thought I'd jump in and abuse my privilege as a chair of this session and quickly ask was there any relationship here presupposed between intending to do something and knowing what one would, could, or should be doing? So could I be intending to do something without knowing what I'd be doing in the there and then? Is that impossible? Is that so? I just wonder if you have a quick reaction to that.
Well, you should be knowing, because you have to elaborate the plan. So your action is actually a sequence of actions, and those actions are accompanied by those intentions in action. So yes, you will know.
So I'd have to have knowledge about what I intend, knowledge about what I believe, knowledge about what I desire, knowledge about the proper sequences in that plan, and so on. Does that
Yes,
is that
I
what you're
think
saying?
yeah, it's an affirmative answer. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. And I believe the next question comes from Ovidio. Ovidio, we're all ears.
Yeah, just a very quick point. So about your device, about your like modal sole agency requirement thing. So the way I understood it is that you kind of win something, but you lose something in the same way. So for instance, I want to turn on the light, and I trip, and I still fall with my hand on the switch and turn it on. But then with your like modal thingy, if I were to not slip and like hit the button, I wouldn't have accomplished my intention. So then you lose something by this like awkward causal chain or wayward. So I mean that's just a small thing. I have another
Okay,
question, but I would just
okay,
wait.
maybe because so this means it's not really okay. In the first case, it's a wayward causal chain, and you're not executing your intention successfully. So the problem is
Which
not
is the first?
the case when the floor is wet and you hit the by mistake the switch. So this is not a problem, because it's easily explainable by being a wayward causal chain. So you don't execute successfully your intention. My rephrasal in the modal terms of the sole agency requirement was for the problematic cases, like the secret agents cases, when we have co-agency without wanting to have co-agency, and without needing to have co-agency, because the fact that 006 also poisons Aristotle Christato's food doesn't add to the final result. So the modal sole agency requirement was formulated in order to loosen the sole agency requirement, and to include these cases, like the ones with the secret spies, as cases in which agents successfully execute their intention. So the idea is to take this puzzling case, which is puzzling only because of the sole agency requirement, and to rephrase the sole agency requirement in order to take this case to be not so problematic anymore. Did I answer the question?
All right, and we're all happy when something that seemed puzzling no longer is. I think we'll come back to all of this. These are fantastic questions and fantastic answers. And I think Bogdan has a new question right now. So Bogdan, we're all ears.
Yes, thank you. And a very interesting topic, and I like the topic of causation and overdetermination. So this is a talk that I really enjoyed. So my question is regarding the model principle that you talked about, the sole agency requirement. So if I understood correctly, so if 007 had not been accompanied by 006's action of poisoning Aristotle Christakis, then he would obviously have been successful on his own.
Mhm.
And due to your counterfactual principle, this would mean that if 007 would state, I intended to kill Aristotle Christakis, then his sentence would be true, right?
Mhm.
His statement would be true. Well, doesn't that mean that both of them, both 007 and 006,
Okay,
if they
yes.
said in
So
the same breath,
it's the same. So it's the same thing can be said about 006. So 006 uh, is saying something true, that he killed Aristotle Christatos and that he successfully. So the idea is that both successfully executed their intention, or the alternative that Ludwig argues for, that neither of them.
right? And your counterfactual principle shows, I mean, you would be in favor of the answer that both of them executed their
Mhm.
intention.
With
All
keeping
right, all right,
some form of the sole agency requirement.
right. This was the question. This was the clarification I wanted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much, Bogdan. And we have a new question from Andrei Paraschiv. Andrei, I need to warn you, Andrei has several questions up his sleeve, and he'll keep prompting them as soon as he gets the chance. So, Andrei, please go ahead.
Thank you, but I don't guarantee that it will be the case. Depends on how my spontaneous mind will be intending to act. So, I was thinking of the following scenario. Uh, Suppose someone finds out about Aristotle Christakis being dead, and for some reason, that person narrows the list of possible killers down to 006 and 007, and brings both of them in front of him. They don't know each other. They had no idea of each other's intention, as we decided earlier. And the prosecutor, whatever that person who interrogates them is, could ask the following question: which of them was the one who killed Aristotle? My question is, can such a question still be asked or still hold? And if so, what would they say? I mean, both of them would raise their hand. I did. They'd look at each other. No, you didn't. I did. We both did. But remember how I formulated the question, not who killed Aristotle, because as we said, it was not a collective action. Which of you was the one who did it? What do we do in such case? And can your model, more relaxed definition from the end of the presentation, account for such scenarios?
Okay, so the idea is that they both killed him. They're both assassins of Aristotle Christatos, and they would say that we, if if they find out that actually the other agent poisoned the food as well. So they're both responsible for this. The idea is the following, and this is the criticism Bloomberg has. If 007 says, I killed Aristotle Christatos, from Ludwig's point of view, this sentence is false. But it shouldn't, because of that sole agency requirement. But if we don't have that sole agency requirement, we can have true. We can have. This sentence, "I killed Aristotle Christatos," is true, can be true, and the following as well. I killed Aristotle Christatos, and 006 did the same thing. So both sentences can be true. So the basic idea is that when I say I killed Aristotle Christatos, I do not exclude the participation of another agent. Because if I do this, then my sentence would be false. Okay, so I'm not sure if I answered to your question. Maybe you can
yes, you did, at least philosophically. But honestly, if I were the prosecutor and I were to hear you saying the same things that you said a few seconds ago, I think you're trying to play me for a fool or something like that, because such an answer, no matter how philosophically coherent it is, sounds really unnatural. Like, okay, so both of you killed him, but you weren't cooperating. How does that even make sense? So what I'm trying to point out is that we have some basic intuitions. This sole agent requirement is very intuitive, deeply rooted in our way of thinking about actions. And what you're suggesting, again, even though it's right and coherent and it seems to solve the problem, would raise some question marks on behalf of usual people with a non-philosophical background who would hear such an answer. And this is what bugs me a little.
So the prosecutor, the judge actually should sentence both of them for killing Aristotle Christatos. The question is whether he should also charge them with cooperation in murder. So this would be a second, maybe if you want to think from this point of view. So probably for the cooperation would have been would be more problematic for the judge to decide, because they didn't cooperate.
But for the sake of consistency, if I, the judge, say, okay, so 006 and 007, I condemn both of you, then my next logical step would be to look for 008 and 009, because this way I should punish all those who, according to your modal definition, would have probably killed Aristotle anyway. I can't be satisfied with only two. I mean, I either identify one killer, or I try to look for all of them, wherever they might be hiding.
Okay, so I don't want to. I'm not sure. I didn't see this consequence of the modal formulation like an expansion of possible and condemning possible murders of Aristotle Christatos.
Possible murderers aren't successful murderers. That's what I would add.
Well, the idea is the following, that since both 007 and 006 actions are sufficient to kill Aristotle Christatos, then we can think that if just only one of them would have done this, the result would have been the same, considering that the agent has the same primitive actions and the plan in action is the same. So this is what my model formulation was intended to show.
All right, thanks so much. And I'm going to jump in with maybe a way too theoretical question. I'm wondering if between successful execution of an intention in action on the one hand and agency On the other hand, there might be some conceptual room. So, for instance, is it possible, suppose we're executioners for the same person, right? And well, suppose we're not. Suppose you and Andrei are, okay, and you're supposed to hang them, and Andrei's supposed to shoot them, okay? And suppose you both somehow do this at the same time, and each of these things would have been individually sufficient, but they both happen. And sure, that's an extreme case, but does that that already begins to show that there's some possible other scenarios in the neighborhood, right? Where he missed but you succeeded, or you missed but he succeeded, or each of you succeeded sort of at a limit, luckily, something like that. So is there a difference, at least a conceptual, theoretical one, between successful execution of an intention in action on the one hand and agency, soul agency on the other hand? I wonder. And the soul business, I must confess I'm sort of baffled by, because first of all, whether there's a difference with agency, right? And then what comes of soul agency, right?
Okay, so I'm not sure, but I don't think that successful execution of an intention in action requires the soul agency, because we have successful execution of intention in action in the collective cases as well, and the collective cases are by their definition excluding soul agency. So from a very I don't know, if I think just a bit about it, I don't think there are synonyms, or they require each other.
Right, and I think that's exactly right. I think you're right about that. But the question then is, right, if they're sort of conceptually distinct, what sort of guarantees or what warrants or what makes it the case that we should be able to presume that they're metaphysically the same, right? So they're conceptually distinct. Couldn't we possibly think of, I don't know, stuff that could speak to one but not the other?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay, so you're asking me, they're conceptually different, but they're metaphysically different?
Right, that's the question, right.
Very difficult question. No, I'm not sure. I have to think about it. It's
okay.
It's a very good question.
That's a terrific answer. So thanks so much. And I think we have Radu, and then we have Ovidiu again for questions. Radu, please go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
Would you be so kind to formulate within the frame of your model a description of what happens as in terms of actions and agency when a firing squad is carrying out an execution, and they're given also that blank cartridge. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to diffuse responsibility and guilt.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder how that would fall in. How would you break it down for us in your model?
Okay. So I think it's actually a collective action there. It's not an individual action. So the killing of, I don't know, Ceausescu was a collective action. Even though the real bullet, it's just in one gun. This is how it strikes me, because the individuals participating of the action, they contribute with in different ways at the final result of killing the prisoner. So my answer would be that this is a case of a collective action read in the collective way. It's not a collection of individual actions.
Thanks so much, Andrea. And I think that Radu's question also nicely brings out the way that agency and responsibility might each take their separate ways. It might be, so when you shoot with an empty bullet and when you shoot with a bullet that's filled with gunpowder, you still shot the person in question. And so the action in question isn't necessarily, well, anyway, it just seems to me that might sort of also, it's probably, yeah, it's probably not that relevant, but I thought I'd bring it up anyway. So, okay, thanks. So, Ovidio, you're up next. Thanks.
Yeah, so yeah, I really like the example with the firing squad. I was thinking of something similar myself. So one thing I would like is to press you a bit on this. So first, so how is the 006 and 7 case different than that of the firing squad? So like forget about the blanks for a second. Consider, everyone has a loaded gun and they all shoot someone. Me, Andrei, and Paula are all of us shooting you, right? I mean, even if I'm not firing my gun, Andrei or Paula would still kill you. This is the same for everyone. So, I mean, I really can't see the difference, except for the epistemic feature that we all know that other people are involved, right?
Okay, so
this is one thing.
I don't think there is a difference either. So I think it's the same thing.
Right, but then if you insert a blank into the whole equation, it just kind of becomes a matter of probability or something like that. I mean something like there is a probability that the blank was in my gun, not your gun, and so on. Anyway, you can answer to this if you want. A second thing I wanted to ask is more general, and it concerns like the kind of the relation between these things, like these kinds of intentional actions and these examples, borderlining individual actions and collective actions, and like the ontology of events, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking about what is it to be an event, and if, for instance, you have that sort of criterion for successfully accomplishing a singular action, then you have with 006 and 007 two distinct events, right? The first event being 006 killed Aristotle, what's his name, and the second event being 007 killed that guy. So I wonder if is there any bearing on the whole discussion of the ontology of events and so on in this whole issue.
Well, okay, so if we think about events in the way you are thinking, so the answer would be easier. Yes. So the whole problem and the reason Ludwig considers this to be a failure of executing the intention is because we have the same event. If we split the event and we have the event of 007 killing Aristotle Christatos and 006 killing Aristotle Christatos, then we do not have I don't think we would have any problems to consider them successfully to successfully execute their intention. So it's easier. It's an argument against Ludwig to consider the two events separately. But I'm not sure if you can argue for this kind of ontology of events. I think this is what is more difficult.
All right, terrific. Thanks so much. I wonder if there further.
Ovidiu is not satisfied, but I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, Ovidiu, would you like to follow up? And meanwhile, I'm.
No, I'm gonna think about it for a bit.
Okay, and I'd eagerly invite everybody in the meeting. If you'd like to ask some more questions, by all means, go ahead. You don't need to, but if you'd like to, that'd be nice. So, let me just sort of, I don't know, take the wheel myself and ask if you could maybe take us a bit further than just a minute and incredibly helpful discussion of Kirk Ludwig. So suppose, does this tell us anything general about the relationship between agency and intention, or does it tell us anything importantly general about individual agency versus collective agency? Or so what's at stake here? What should we take out of this and say, oh, I thought the exact opposite, but here's how things stand? Or,
so this is a tiny problem in the problem of whether there are group agents. So the reason Ludwig rejects this this idea that they're both successfully executing their intention is because he wants to argue that the collective reading of plural action sentences is not reducible to a distributive reading. The distributive reading has the sole agency requirement. The collective reading doesn't have the sole agency requirement. So this is the big picture, and this is the big consequence. If the two readings are reducible to another, this would mean that collective actions are actions. And if collective actions are actions, then Ludwig says that we also need to accept group agents or an agent over and above the individuals participating at the collective action. So this is at stake.
right, and this is terrific, and let me just quickly follow up on that as I kindly and persistently invite everybody else in the meeting to produce their own questions. So I mean, we typically say things like that, right? Like the Germans beat the French in 1871, right? Or the English and the French beat the Germans at Somme. in 1917, or we typically say things like that, but that doesn't seem, at least when said by every person, that there was some kind of intricate solidarity between the Germans when they beat the French, who were somehow intricately in solidarity in being beaten, or that when the English and the French beat the Germans at Somme, they were somehow in cahoots in this kind of conceptual and systematic way, and the Germans themselves as a people were beaten, right? And so it seems that we say a bunch of stuff, right? So and we typically say stuff that we maybe by charity say are true statements, even though we don't believe in peoples or some such, or even when we don't believe in peoples or some such. And we could talk about peoples, we could talk about any kinds of groups, right? Confessions or military groups or extended families or etc. So groups of any kind sorted by any sort of criterion, right? So the fact that such statements are true, does that imply that there's a truth maker to that in the real big wide world? To the extent that that poses a problem for collective agency?
So the truth maker should be the collective agent, the agent over and above in this sense. But we can reduce, so this is one way of dealing with group agency, to say that it's actually, we talk as if there are group agents, we talk about groups, we talk as if we assume their existence. But if we apply some sort of a logical analysis and we get into the structure of the logical structure of what we are really saying, we can see that there isn't any reference actually to this kind of entities like group agents.
So when we say that the French love Baudelaire, for instance, are we really saying that there's a collective love? I mean, couldn't there be some kind of truth to the statement that the French love Baudelaire that falls short of presupposing some collective agency or a collective intention to the effect that might be borne by the French toward Baudelaire?
I don't really see the problem. I mean, when we say that the French love Baudelaire, we just say something like, I don't know, I'm not sure we are talking about or one can argue that we're not talking about the French as an entity, but a certain big amount of people who loved Baudelaire.
All right. Well, I certainly readily agree that the answer is much clearer than the question. So thank you so much for that. And I think the next question we have up is from Gadu once again. Gadu, we're all ears. I'm afraid we can't hear you, Gadu. So if you can.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I thought about the notion of a collective action that implies a collective agent, but there seems to be a split between the notion of a collective agent and the collective intention, because the intention should be composite, or at least we can thought up some variants of collective actions who have composite intentions. Sorry for the noise. And in that situation, a collective agent would not be accountable in the same way about the action, due to the fact that the intentions can vary dramatically as they also add up to the execution of that action that is, let's say, conformal for each one of the agents. And regarding what Andrei said about the French, I think it's very interesting as it gets close to that voting paradox, when the majority can decide that Coke is better than Fanta, Fanta is better than Sprite, and also that Sprite is better than Coke, because the majority is a term that have an open extension, so people can get in and out of that.
I think we can all sense that the Gadu here is a fan of Condoxe, and so thanks so much. Okay, Andrea, if you'd like.
So the idea is what would be the difference between so we have group agents, but we cannot have group intention, because intention in a state, it's a state of mind. It's in the mind of an individual. And
also because different intentions can lead to conformal to the same type of action. Mm-hmm. So when some group of people teams up to execute one action, they can have very, very different intentions. So as we judge the agency, are we judging the participation or also the motivation of that group, of that individuals in the group?
Aren't we judging the consequences?
If you judge the law actually makes that distinction, because if you judge by the consequences and you do not take in consideration the intention, you will not your decision, your verdict will not cover up the patterns, the repetitive patterns of behavior. So for instance, if someone kills somebody else by accident by dropping a brick from the top of a building, that he won't be an accidentally serial killer. He won't repeat that.
Okay, so one of the arguments against group agents is that in order to be an agent, you have to have mental states, some cognitive states. So from this point of view, yes, we cannot have this kind of collective intention. Only if we understand intention as a state of mind. So we should have a division between group agents and intentions. I'm not sure if this is the answer, a very short answer I can think about now. The whole point of arguing, and the most difficult point of arguing for group agency is to argue for this kind of similarity between an individual agent who has this and that mental states and the group agent who doesn't have those mental states. It can have mostly an aggregation of mental states or cognitive states.
All right, terrific. Thanks so much. I have a follow-up to Gadu's question if we get to it, but I want to make sure that Andreea Popescu gets a chance to ask another question as well. We're all yours, Andrei.
Thank you. My question is also some kind of follow-up to both what Andrei and Radu said previously. When it comes to group agents, what do we make of those cases where a group of individuals acts, at least with the quotation marks, in a way in which none of the individual agents would have acted individually? I mean, there are this kind of cases, right, where I don't know, some protesters get really fired up and the tension grows and they amplify each other, and then they say, okay, let's go decapitate the ruler, and then they go do that in spite of the fact that none of them would have done that, and maybe 5 seconds after the decision has been taken, each one of them thinks deep inside, what the hell am I doing? Is this right? So what I'm trying to emphasize by this is that there's no mental state at all that would correspond to decapitating the ruler in the whole group after the decision was made. But still, given the social dynamics, given the fact that the decision has already been made, the fact that they wrote "decapitate the ruler" on their posters, etc., etc., they succeed in doing this action. Does this not tell us something important about this requirement that you mentioned twice or 3 times, that there should be a certain state of mind in order for there to be agency? I mean, these seem like some examples where a group has an intention, the action is done, even though none of the individuals in that group has that corresponding mental state. What would we say about this kind of events? Thank you.
Well, I don't think I agree. So if the protesters get fired up, they have that mental state, aggressive mental state, for example, to kill the ruler. So of course, that mental state, each participant's mental state is enhanced by the behavior of the other protesters. And of course, people may act differently when they're in a group. But one answer could be the following. Of course, maybe someone from that group wouldn't have been so violent. Maybe it's not he or she is not a violent person, but she just acted like this because she participated to that action. On the other hand, there are many situations in which people do things, do stuff they wouldn't have done on a daily basis. Or, for example, if you get really scared because, I don't know, some dogs are barking at you, you become violent in order to defend yourself. But it doesn't mean that you are a violent person. Okay, so this is, I don't know.
Okay, so basically there's no such thing as nobody has that mental state at all, as I might have suggested. And
no, I mean, this is, it's a discussion. This is one idea would be the following: that when aggregated, I don't know, when the intentions of many individuals are aggregated, they cannot be. They can deliver something different if those intentions would have been taken separately. So in this sense, there's some sort of collective, there's collective intentionality. But one way to answer to your example is this one, that arguing that you act differently in a collectivity doesn't really mean, I don't know, show that we have collective intentionality, because you can act differently in different sorts of situation. If you're, I don't know, if you're in a life-threatening situation, you act completely different. So I just say this is a discussion.
I see. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Andrei, for your question, and Andrea for the answer. And we have a new question from Ovidio.
Yeah. So I wonder just, do we need a definite, a universal kind of answer to the question, are there group agents or collective intentionality or so on. So I take it that, saying the French people love Baudelaire is just saying that there are many people in France born there who incidentally kind of love Baudelaire, right? But here's one about the French. So the French won the 1998 World Cup, right? And someone might say, no, that's more than just 20 people throwing in something at the game and doing this and that. It's France and it's the game, and it's it will be recorded in some sort of history of sports and so on. So in this case, there might be some sort of more collective, supra kind of agent doing some kind of conceptual job. But I mean, I just wonder if we need some sort of universal philosophical answer to this question as it is.
Maybe we can be pluralist about it in a way. The idea is whether there is any situation which compels us to accept that there are group agents. Is there at least one situation? And some say that there isn't. There is no such thing. This is what's this mysterious stuff? But maybe we can be more pluralist, and we can say that this is a way of speaking about just the way we talk, and we need it in order to express different stuff, like the one that French won the World Cup. But I think there's actually more like a relation between symbols, and so there's a bit. The problem is more complicated because it's a relation between the symbols of a collectivity. So that's why we say that the French won the World Cup, because the national team is a symbol for the French, for French.
Yeah, but the national team has agency insofar as it can win or lose, right? I mean, that's something that the collective thing can do.
Mm-hmm.
And no player, I mean, any player can retire or whatever, and it will be automatically replaced by some other guy. So.
Oh, okay. Well, a classical view would be the following: that the national team is a group with collective intentionality, which is not reducible to the intentional to the intentionality of the individuals forming that group, and maybe this is why, for example, it can survive the changing of the group.
Right. No, I was just, so my question was like much simpler. Was something like this: is this thing, the fact that there are like national teams in sports and so on, is this a counterexample of the idea that collective intentionality reduces to individual intentionality, and collective action reduces itself to individual actions and so on? I mean, does this work in this way, or do we need to think that this works like this, or we can just leave all sorts of things in the world and then leave it like this? Does it work?
Well, this is basically a problem regarding institutions and social groups which form institutions. So if you want to argue for group agent, for group agency, for there being group agents, the way institutions function may be an argument for this, because it's more difficult to reduce to the individual actions. So if, I don't know, if the government does something bad, we ask for the resignment of the whole government because we consider it's responsible. If, I don't know, the prime minister has to
Yeah, sorry to butt in, but that is quite topical, isn't it? I wonder if that makes your point the best it can.
okay, so no, I think it's, if we go back to Ovidio's question, is that it doesn't matter actually if we have institutions, and the way we talk about institutions and and what they do, because philosophers will always find a way to argue either for inexistence of group agency, or on the contrary, for the existence of group agency. So I'm not sure if it really bears on the debate.
All right, thanks so much. And I wonder if there, I should have a quick follow-up. You know, I always try to resist myself having a follow-up, and but still. So I wonder, part of what seems to be going on, at least naively, at least prima facie, is something like this. When a sports team, right, wins, when Zinedine Zidane and his fellow mates won the World Cup in '98, right, they were in some sense representatives of their country, right? And who knows what it is to be a representative, but whatever it is, they were doing it, right? I mean, that I'm just trying to spurt out platitudes here, but it seems as though that's what they were doing. And it seems as though it's not just some kind of language trick that we ascribe to the country of victory that the team achieved. It seems to bank on this kind of relationship of representation, right? And that seems to be in some sense extra linguistic.
I don't understand why it's extra linguistic.
Well, I mean, they were playing football, right? They were using their legs. Nobody asked them to. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it seems as though the kind of representation that the team was asked to perform on behalf of their country was in some sense, I don't know, physical or whatever. Something of the sort. Something that's not merely a way of speaking. I think that's fairly uncontroversial. It's not just that we talk that way. The team, there really is a team, and the team really did win the World Cup, and this, I think, is the punchline. They really did win it for France, right? So there's some kind of segue there. I don't know. Would you agree?
Okay. Yes, I would. I would agree, and I would refer to my previous presentation at Aleph, when I argued, and I was trying to argue that maybe we should just deflate our talk about group agency and not look into the metaphysical meaning of what group agents are, and just take it at face value. And I think it would be easier in this way, just to accept that this is there isn't some sort of property that we should look into in order to discover that they are group agents. So yes, I think a deflationist view would be welcome in order to argue for group agency.
Okay, good. Plenty of questions left and plenty of food for thought. But thank you so much for your answer, Andreea. And I wonder if there are any further questions or comments or reactions. And if not, we're delighted to have had our first talk in our Workshops in Understanding series. Thanks so much to Dr. Andreea Popescu for the presentation, and especially so since she's had to weather some technical issues, and we're very grateful that she's managed to do that absolutely fantastically. And thanks so much to everyone in attendance, especially to the many and devoted members of the audience who've asked questions and have struggled with in a good way, right? With Andrea's text. So thanks so much, and have a good night. And take care.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the questions. They're very useful, and I will integrate them in my further research. Thank you.
And I see we have a new audience member right there. Hi, buddy.
Hi.
There you go. That's fantastic. That's amazing. Okay, good. Take care. Good night, everybody.
Okay, goodbye. Thank you.
Good night.